Hey everyone, welcome back to Topher Drives, where this week I've been daily driving this 2026 Subaru Forester Wilderness, the newly refreshed soft roader from Subaru. And this has actually gotten some pretty meaningful updates for the 2026 model year. The Forester entered its 6th generation in 2025, but the Wilderness was a little bit late to the party, not getting its refresh until the 26 model year. But Subaru made it worth it. They added some things that actually make this pretty legit. And I must admit, I used to make fun of the Subaru Wilderness trim level vehicles because I thought they were all bark and no bite. I thought this was all for show, but this is actually a pretty well-equipped car for doing some mild off-roading. It's a legitimate soft roader. We like to throw that term around quite a bit because it seems like everybody these days has a trim level of their SUV that has an all-terrain tire, some different stitching inside, and a roof rack, and that's about it. But this is much more. Now for 2026, Subaru has increased the ground clearance from 9.2 inches to 9.3. Sometimes you need that extra 0.1, and they have given you that for 2026. They've also improved the approach and departure angles of this SUV. They've added a temperature sensor to the rear differential. They've given this a shorter final drive on its CVT, and of course, a number of styling updates because they had to fit all of the Wilderness bits to the 6th generation Forester. We have these new 17-inch wheels. The Yokohama Geolanders are now a little bit wider at a 235/60R17 squared setup, and I just love the look of this, especially muddy. The Topher drove this through a mud puddle yesterday, and I said thank you. That actually improved the looks of this overall. But this has gotten some new front and rear ends. I think the Forester has looked pretty much the same, honestly, since its 3rd generation in 2008, and they've kind of just been doing little tweaks here and there. But I think for its 6th generation, it now looks like something that would have been designed by Mitsuoka, which is not a bad thing. I think this actually looks quite attractive. This is finished in autumn green, and just like most other Foresters that aren't hybrids, it's powered by a 2.5-liter naturally aspirated flat-4 boxer engine with 180 horsepower and 178 pound-feet of torque. Now, this is kind of where these SUVs kind of fall short for me, is in the powertrain department. I know that Subaru is known for their flat-4s, and that's the way that it should be, but when you put 180 horsepower powertrain with a CVT and symmetrical all-wheel drive and an SUV this size, the results are not the most exciting. And I think it would go a long way if Subaru maybe spiced that up, but we'll get into that once we actually start driving this in our abbreviated living with video today. We're gonna, of course, do our normal thing. We'll go around the performance loop, we'll go on the highway, we'll get into the city, and we have one stop to make today at the grocery store to re-up my supply of certain things at the house. But before we do the drive and stuff, let's poke around and walk around this new Forester Wilderness and show you what it looks like inside and out. We'll start in the back, where this has the optional power liftgate, because this has the one option package that you can put on the Forester Wilderness, which is called the options package, and that gets you the power liftgate, the digital gauge cluster inside, and a couple of other things that we'll put down in the description. But that means that this is up from its $38,000 starting MSRP to $42,000 as spec'd. In the back of the Forester, we have some pretty decent room here and a dealer accessory mat that looks like you could hose it out. But what I love the most is what's underneath all of this stuff, and that is and full-sized spare tire, which is made by a brand I've never heard of, Bravo All-Terrain. So they cheaped out a little bit for the spare, but hey, at least they gave us a full-sized for if you're actually on the trail and you need a spare. Check it out. Now that does kill all of your underfloor storage, but I think you've got adequate room here just on top. We've got a Harman Kardon sound system in this Subaru Forester, which is actually really good. I think for $42,000, it's kind of the star of the show in this interior. Let's check out the back seat. So this has StarTex, which is slightly revised for 26. It's now even more water resistant than it was before. So if you go out for a bike ride or something and you come back, you're sweaty and things, your disgusting odors won't soak into the seats and it won't make the inside of your car stink. Jokes aside, this is actually really nice for being able to just wipe this out, because this is an adventure car. You should be doing adventure things. If you've got a dog back here with muddy paws or whatever, take a cloth, wipe it off, and that's it. Job done. No stains in here. You can see on higher trims of the Subaru, like the Limited or whatever, you can get heated rear seats. This does not have that, but we do have a USB-C and USB-A port and a fold-down armrest with some cup holders. But I think the best thing about this back seat is all the room in here. And this is kind of a common theme with the Forester. It's just this big, boxy, open greenhouse interior. At 5'11", sat here behind myself, behind a seat that does not have any comfort access, so this is exactly where I'd be if the car was in motion. I've got tons of room, headroom, legroom, and I just feel like I can kind of spread out back here. And even though this is all-wheel drive, there's not a super crazy drivetrain hump in the middle, too, so you could take 4 adults or 5 adults, including the driver, in here, I think, with no problem. Before we jump up front, let's show you under the hood this 2.5-liter naturally aspirated Boxer 4. It is a shame, because Subaru did actually used to make a turbocharged Forester back in the day called the XT. But now this is it. It's this or the hybrid version. So again, to reiterate, 180 horsepower, 178 pound-feet of torque. CVT, all-wheel drive. I mean, the most boring part of a car that is otherwise quite fun. You know, we kind of shame the automotive industry these days for just making boring cars. And I gotta hand it to Subaru for actually making something that's at least exciting to look at and exciting to buy. You know, walking into the dealership with some intention to buy kind of an adventure-ready car. They've added a new transmission cooler for this year too, which means towing capacity is now 3,500 pounds, which is the most it's ever been for any Subaru Forester ever. Now, 3,500 pounds doesn't mean you can tow much. I imagine you'd tow like a pop-up camper or something, but you're not towing a WRX. You're not even towing an old Subaru SVX, because that weighs just over 3,500 pounds, but you could tow a 1960 Subaru 360, because that only weighs 1,000 pounds, and I think by the time you put a trailer and things, you could have your modern and classic Subaru situation going on here. But we've got a lot of Subaru Wilderness badges, lots of anodized gold around this. You can see you've got one on each front door here. You've got lots of gold bits around. There's a badge on the back. There's little tags everywhere in the interior to remind you. You've got them on each door panel. You've got them on each seat. You've got them on the front headrests here. I think Subaru does compete with BMW M for the amount of Wilderness badges that they put on their Wilderness products. We've even got gold stitching here on these gray StarTex front seats. These kind of just look like wetsuit material, but it does certainly fit the vibe of the entire car. All right, it's cold out. I'm going to jump in. Not the quietest interior, but it's kind of just boomy and open in here, and we have this massive moonroof, which has, I think, been a thing since the 3rd generation. I remember I've sat in a couple 3rd-gen Foresters, and they have massive sunroofs like this too, but I do love it. But it's funny that it's a manual shade, because you have to, like, push it all. You have to, like, do a stretch to get it all the way back, but not complaining at all that it's manual, because one less thing to break. Let's go ahead and start this up. Inside here, you can see this optional 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster, which is honestly one of my favorites that I have seen, because it's so easy to read, and this kind of gold theme continues into the cluster as well. But the prettiness of the gauge cluster is kind of where the niceness of technology ends in this interior, because if we look to the middle here, as I turn my fan speed down so you can hear what I'm on about, we have what I think is easily the worst infotainment system on the new car market in 2026. This is abysmal. And the even funnier part is this is like the upgraded infotainment for Subaru. It's the optional extra. And sure, it has wireless CarPlay. It has built-in navigation by TomTom, which is how you know that things are already off to a bad start. But you can just see that motions in this are not fluid. Things lag a bit. Clicking into Apple CarPlay, it takes a second. It's just things that you shouldn't have to deal with in 2026. And this is actually behaving a little bit better because it's warmed up. First thing in the morning, it's nearly impossible to use. And this is a bummer because your heated seats are in here, your climate panel is in here. If you want to turn your recirc on or something, it's an extra click. So it's a little bit like beating a dead horse. Subaru's had this now for a few years. I complain about it in every Subaru that I drive. They still haven't made it better. I'm waiting for them to make it better, but this is easily the worst part of this entire car, and I really hope that they address that at some point. But anyway, to stop beating a dead horse, there are other good things in this interior, like this leather-wrapped steering wheel with this little bit of gold accenting. We've got a newly revised center console for 2026. We've got a deeper cubby back here, and this is okay. The only thing I don't like that they did is they got rid of the little leather shift boot around the shifter, and it makes this just feel cheap and like made by Fisher Price. But the cup holder locations make a bit more sense. They've made some larger cup holders to fit big dumb cups, which is again lovely for people that go on hikes and things. They have big water bottles, and then you've got a little phone slot right here and a wireless charger. So there are places to put things. You've got more water bottle holders in the door panels too. No extra cubbies or anything on the dash, but I do love this little trim that they put on the dash. Oh, I guess it's only on the right side. I was going to show you over here too, but it's not. It's just more of this like StarTex material that carries through to the dashboard. Now this has Subaru EyeSight. You can tell because it has the little stork or whatever that is on the windshield, and I think it has another one on the sunroof too. It does. Check that out, the little bird on there. Actually, there's one other thing I want to show you, and that is our physical dimmer switch for the gauge cluster. And it dims everything. It dims the infotainment and the cluster, which is very nice for driving at night. I always love to see that. Into reverse, as we start our journey today, you can see what is one of the lowest definition backup cameras, I think, of any car on the new car market, but it does the trick. Electronic parking brake. And you're also prompted to change your X mode when you go into reverse. Snow, dirt, normal, deep snow, and mud. These are speed limited modes. I think it's like 25-ish miles an hour. If you're actually on the trail or in some sort of situation, you can use those to your advantage. Into drive, front camera does not automatically come up, but you can hit this camera view button and it will. And it's just as terrible as the backup camera. Super low quality and looks like it's from a 10-year-old Nissan. Okay. Let's go into Apple CarPlay. Let's go into Waze. You can actually have a proper navigation service running in the background. This car is tough for me because I think it's a really charming package, and I love the little gold touches and just kind of fun nature of this car. I like that Subaru makes it, but there are so many things in here that are just like head scratchers, especially for the $42,000 price tag of this car, in my opinion, that are just completely unacceptable. This laggy infotainment system, this cheap toyish shifter, the kind of lackluster powertrain overall. This car is so close to being like a really cool enthusiast buy, but I don't know that it's necessarily for the car enthusiast, and I think that's kind of sad. But even if it's not, I mean, the outdoors enthusiast should at least get an infotainment screen that reacts like their phone, not one that takes 3 seconds in between clicks. Okay, that's the last we're going to talk about the infotainment system, because I'm boring myself with it right now. You do get fake shifts with the CVT when you're driving normally. We've got 2 drive modes in here, Intelligent, which is the default mode, and Sport Sharp. Why don't we try that out for our little performance section here. This CVT will simulate an 8-speed automatic if you put it in manual mode and use the paddle shifters. This is flat out. It is incredibly slow. But here's the thing with this car. I'm going to put this back into Intelligent so it doesn't rev itself so high. it's actually pretty fun to drive and pretty fun to hustle around. You saw through that little roundabout corner back there, the suspension and the steering, they're pretty compliant. I mean, this sits like it's on stilts. It's got 9.3 inches of ground clearance, but it's not body rolling like crazy. You can actually kind of hustle this around corners, and it's fine. It's fun to drive. It's not scary. You could take this on a pretty intense mountain road on your way to the trail or something, and that must be the idea behind this. I'll take it around this corner here, see if we can get these tires to complain. Yeah. It's all right. Does all that I would ever ask of it to do around a corner, and you guys know that I like body roll. I don't think SUVs should handle like they're on rails. This is kind of a proper SUV in the way that it has some body roll, but it's not scary. You know, you know what's going on with the front end of the Forester Wilderness, and that's a good thing. Ride quality is lovely. These Geolanders do howl a little bit, but they could be so much louder. This is not even close to the loudest all-terrain tire that I've heard. I think these are perfectly suited for the mission of this car. We'll get this turned around up here, and we'll show you what it's like off the line in Sport Sharp. This is a CVT, so I'm not going to brake torque it. We're just going to roll into it here. And there's 60 in what feels like about 8.5 seconds, if I had to guess. Which I would say is just kind of under the threshold of what's acceptable, or over, whatever. It's just barely acceptable, I think, for this car. I'll show you this manual mode. The paddles and the CVT do react very quickly, but they should, because all of it's fake. So anything other than instantaneous would not really make much sense. Let's put this back into intelligent mode. And let's get on the highway, because who's hustling their Subaru Forester Wilderness around? Probably nobody. I understand coding in these fake gear shifts kind of just for like comfort, and by comfort I mean like peace of mind for someone that's used to a car with a torque converter automatic. But I feel like at this point the Forester's had a CVT for so long, like I think owners are used to it by now. We're gonna have to pass the BZ4X unless he puts the hammer down. I'm using all 178 pound-feet of torque, which doesn't come in until 3,400 RPM, which is over halfway through the rev range, because this red line's at 6,000. So unless you have an entrance ramp like that, which is like a mile long, you are going to be revving this thing out, which means your fuel economy is diminished a bit. In the last 93 miles, I've done 19.6 mpg, which is quite poor. I mean, this has a lot of things working against it for its efficiency. It sits really high up. It's not really designed in an aerodynamic way. It's got a pretty blocky front end. This is rated, I think, combined at around 24? It's like 22, 24. I'll put the exact MPG right here, because on my little spec sheet that Subaru gave us, it says TBD, and I didn't look it up, so we'll put that on the screen for you. Over the last 300 miles, it's done 22 MPG, so I've diminished it slightly by driving it in the cold Michigan wasteland. The only good thing about this climate control is that Subaru does give you physical buttons here on the sides that work quite well. You can turn this down on the fly. That is quite nice. As far as the eyesight and driver aids for the highway go, I've never really had a problem with this. I mean, I think it works just as it should. This is a good example here. All right, so this guy's gonna pass. I'm gonna go for the pass. I wanna see if this accelerates. Okay, so some pretty good progressive acceleration once you're about halfway out of the lane. It's usually about what I like to see. I mean, ideally it starts accelerating as soon as you put the turn signal on. I know that isn't ideal for all people, but that's what I usually like to see. But no, this system feels great. I mean, the steering assist does a good job. Let's see how long it'll go. Oh, it'll let you go for quite a while. There you go. Keep hands on the steering wheel. Okay. I like this system, though. It's not swerving all over the place. Its brake inputs aren't nervous. It's already starting to slow down for the slower traffic up here. It's not waiting till the last minute. That is nice. All right, I'm going to kill the cruise control. Just do this myself here for this entrance ramp to the next highway. Now, as far as highway manners go with this, you may think that it's kind of all over the place because it has an all-terrain tire. It sits very high up, but honestly, it's pretty compliant, and really, it's not even as loud as I expected. We'll be able to give you a little bit of a better idea once we're up to some higher speed, but I think for what this is, you can't really expect it to be any quieter for what is a pretty purpose-built soft roader. You've got an all-terrain tire, you've got the ground clearance, you've got the roof rails on the side. We could actually close that, and that would probably make it even just that much quieter. Give you guys a second to observe. Go with this open now. So you've got some wind noise. Road noise is actually quite impressive. It's loud in here, but it's not unacceptably loud. And actually the best thing about this is you can drown it out with the Harman Kardon, which was the biggest and loveliest surprise this week driving this Forester Wilderness. Let's give you a taste of that now. Got a volume knob here, a tune knob, and a physical button on the steering wheel to adjust volume. Love to see all of that. There's a proper rig. Check that out. So, honestly, really great sound system. In my opinion, I think this is fantastic for the $40,000, $42,000 price point of this SUV. No real notes with this. I think it's got nice crispy highs. It's got good power. You've got that rear-mounted sub for, you know, the big hits of the bass. And it's just something you don't expect for a car that, I mean, to be honest, doesn't really focus super hard on like luxury of interior bits. Like, yeah, you have things in here that feel like they'll hold up, but it's not like sitting in a Mercedes-Benz where everything's soft, everything is meant to kind of have that high quality feel. And hearing that good of a sound system is just kind of unexpected. So kudos to Subaru for investing the money in a nice Harman Kardon system here. We're gonna test the width of the car. There you go, maneuverability, check it out. I was looking at some numbers on 3rd gen to 6th gen Forester. This has only grown 4 inches in length since 2008. And from a company that's making everything massive, you know, look at the new Outback, it like looks like a Chevy Suburban. I have to applaud Subaru for making the Subaru big. They did it in 2008, but they haven't made it any bigger. They made it a size and they said, okay, we're going to stick with it. And I think this is a pretty appropriate size for this car. I don't think it feels too big. I don't think it feels too small. I think for the segment, it's good. And I do like the high roof line. It's just a nice big space in here. Let's talk about comfiness in here in this interior. We talked about materials and the sound system and things. Elbows are pretty comfortable and they're at an even height, so you can grab the steering wheel. You've got a cozy console. You've got a cozy little armrest on the door panel. It does feel kind of like rubber, but it is soft enough. That's all I really care about. Got lumbar adjust on this driver's seat. You've got enough height adjustment to make the seat go down to a low enough position for me. Unfortunately, the passenger seat you cannot adjust at all as far as height goes, and it is manual back and forth. I sat passenger in this yesterday with the Topher driving, and I was a little uncomfortable over there. I'm 5'11", and I felt like I was sitting in the ceiling. And this car has a pretty high roof line, so that's really saying something for the position of that passenger seat. But anyway, let's get this into the grocery store parking lot, where I'm sure we are bound to find some other Subaru Wilderness products. We'll take it for a little loop. Steering weight in this, I think, is just about right. It's got a good lightness to it. It's easy to drive this car. It's easy to move this around parking lots. Okay, no Wilderness products, but we do have 2 Outbacks here in a row. One of them's autumn green. And oh, there's another Wilderness product. I knew we'd see one. That's an orange Crosstrek Wilderness. Is my favorite little corner spot open? It is. All right, we're parking at the bookstore, but we're walking over to the grocery store. Let's get this into a spot with our very mediocre backup camera. I think one thing that would make a lot of sense in this would be a 360 camera. You know, they built something for the trails. They give it a temperature sensor in the rear diff, and they increase ground clearance to 9.3 inches, which is only 0.3 inches off of a TRD Pro 4Runner, by the way, a 2022. I parked this next to my buddies the other day, and it's like almost the same height. I'll insert that picture, but I just thought that was funny. Then when you shut the car off, you hear the rear hatch unlock, which is a little bit jarring because it sounds like somebody crashed into the back of you. But it's just the rear hatch. Okay, let's see what this looks like in a parking spot. I suspect quite appropriate because it's just a very normal sized SUV. Yeah, this is good. And then you can open the rear doors, which I don't think are really obnoxiously, I guess they are pretty big. So you could open this, how many clicks? 1. You could probably safely go 2, which means you could easily get in and out, or if you have kids, getting them in and out of here would be no problem. All right, cool. I'm gonna run into the store and we'll be back to wrap this up in a bit. Walking back up to the Forester Wilderness after your grocery trip, which for me is only 1 bag today, you'll find that, unfortunately, it does not have rear proxy key, and I actually don't know if it has a kick sensor in the back. You had your hands full. I don't know, but if you have the key in your pocket, you are able to proxy the rear hatch, which is nice. And we have bag hangers in the back, though I do think these are a little bit low down for a tall paper bag like this one. So we're not going to use these today, but there are 4 of these. If you had smaller plastic bags, that would make that quite convenient for you. I'm just going to take my key fob out and hit the Subaru emblem twice. That will unlock all 4 doors. And I'm just going to throw this on the floor behind the driver's seat because that's the most convenient if you only have 1 bag anyway. Subaru. Also, I think I parked where they had all the snow plowed because there's just an unbelievable amount of junk over here. But ingress and egress into the Forester Wilderness is quite nice. No complaints there. I also like Subaru's chime. All right, let's get this into the city and to our final destination, parking structure. Not final destination in that way. At least I hope not. Look at that Pontiac Montana. When's the last time you saw one of those? When you're in the auto stop start mode, it has a little running timer. Since the last time you put fuel in the car, you can see I've done 45 seconds. That's counting up. Of no idling at lights and things. I've saved 0.006 of a gallon of fuel. But if you don't want to have auto stop start, there is an instantaneous and continuous, whatever the word I'm trying to think of. There's a button that's always on the screen that you can turn it off. I would also like to compliment Subaru on their throttle tuning with this CVT. and 2.5. I mean, they seem to work together pretty well. They've been doing this for a while, so it makes sense that they've tuned this properly. But there's no sort of initial lurchiness when you get off the line in this. And the same can be said for all inputs in this. Brake pedal feels nice. We talked about steering earlier. But it is just a very natural car to drive, despite it being pretty underpowered. You don't have to put a ton of thought into driving it. I also want to compliment the visibility in this Forester Wilderness, and I suppose any Forester, but we talked about this feeling nice and open, and obviously that translates to this being very easy to see out of. I mean, I can see everything I want out the back, and just because I have so much light coming in from this huge moonroof, it just, I think, simulates bigness in here, and I do like that. But not really any major blind spots in this, with deteriorating roads, and every 24 hours it's either above freezing or below freezing, so we just have to deal with this. But this is kind of the car for the job, and I think it's why you see so many of these in Michigan. If you live here, you know exactly what I'm on about. These things are everywhere, and I think it's because people want to be able to do their commute and not have to worry about smashing a wheel. You just drive over everything. And you don't need the wilderness to do this, but I think it adds just that extra peace of mind. But again, like I said, the coolest thing about this is it can actually do more stuff. I mean, there aren't many companies that make a soft rotor trim that features increased ground clearance and an upgraded trans cooler and different bumpers for better approach and departure and a temperature sensor in the rear differential and things and a shorter final drive. There's a lot that goes into this that shows that Subaru does actually intend for this to be used for more than just potholes. And I think that's cool. I think that's what sells this car, and I think what makes it so special, because they've gone beyond just the gold accents. And I think that means a lot in the market right now of most other manufacturers that just do the colored accents, and that's it. Maybe a highway terrain tire and some different wheels. Those are poser cars. This one can actually do stuff. Nice feeling turn signal stalk in this car. There's a lot in here that doesn't really feel super new, but I think that's okay. I mean, all of the physical buttons on the steering wheel, this is a thing that's bad. I mean, I don't like the shifter. Okay, we've talked about that. But I don't think Subaru has over-modernized this interior for the 6th generation of the Forester. But if you can get past the couple little things with this car and learn to live with it, it is really charming. It is cool. It's just cool. Like, it's a cool car to look at. It lets everybody know that you really like the outdoors. And I suspect it's probably at a pretty good height to grab a ticket. It is.
Please select it. Welcome. Please proceed into the lot.
I'm getting too confident just flying in here. Thought for a second this was a 996, but I think it's a 997 on 996 wheels. It is. That's probably his winter setup. Oh, love to see it. Alrighty guys, well that's going to do it for the new 2026 Subaru Forester Wilderness. Let me know what you think of this car in the comments. These wilderness cars have grown on me, I will admit, as I've kind of matured as an enthusiast. And check this out. This is a 6th gen regular Subaru Forester. Why don't we end the video next to this, because we can kind of show you some of the differences. I love when the universe kind of presents things like this. So here's your wilderness, here's your regular Forester. You can see actually the cladding is more similar than I realized. I thought maybe these little vent bits were special for the wilderness, but you can see this regular one has them as well. So still kind of a, I don't want to say rugged, but you know, that thing could handle some potholes. But this is just more. This looks the part a bit more. I think the wilderness treatment very much suits the overall design of this new 6th gen Forester. So that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Please let me know if you have any questions about what it's been like to live with this. I've put a couple hundred miles on this thing this week, so I do know it pretty well. But again, thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Take care.